Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. You're very welcome to the channel. And we're on the trail here of First Lisburn Presbyterian Church. And the congregation was established here in the 1680s. And the first meeting house was a plain thatch roof building at the south end of Bow Street in the Long Stone area of Lisburn. So this is Bow Street here. And that's the chapel there, Lisburn Chapel, and that's what's known as Chapel Hill. And if you go up to the top of Chapel Hill, you'll come to a roundabout. And when you come to a roundabout, then straight across is the Long Stone Street. And so it's believed that the old building was in that vicinity somewhere. Now, the congregation, as I say, it was established in the 1680s, and the Reverend Alexander McCracken had been licensed by the presbytery in 1684, and he was ordained to the pastoral charge of the congregation on the 3rd of July 1688. Now, it's said that King William III worshipped in the church while his troops were encamped at Lurris Moor. And the Reverend McCormick was actually one of the deputation to meet King William at Hillsborough in County Down, which was successful in securing an increase to the Regium Donum. Now, the Reverend McCracken had some concerns about the oath of abjuration, which was understood to imply that the pretender was not the son of the deposed King James II. So the Reverend McCracken was a staunch supporter of the House of Hanover, but he objected to some parts of the phraseology of the oath. Now, the meeting house was destroyed by a great fire that occurred in Lisburn on Sunday the 20th of April 1707, in which many other buildings, of course, were destroyed as well, including the town itself. So the meeting house was rebuilt at Market Square in 1768, and that's where I'm taking you up to now. Now, the Reverend Alexander McCracken, he died in 1730, and he was succeeded by the Reverend Gilbert Kennedy, who was ordained at the who was ordained to the pastoral charge here on the 7th of June 1732. So the meeting house was built on a larger scale in 1768. Now, the Reverend William Bruce was ordained here on the 3rd of November 1779, and he ministered here for 3 years until he was removed to Strand Street in Dublin in 1782. Now, the Reverend Bruce was born in 1757 and he died in 1841. He was the second son of the Reverend Samuel Bruce and the grandson of the Reverend Michael Bruce, who, of course, was a Scottish Presbyterian minister who had been driven out of Ulster back to Scotland by the Irish during the Williamite Wars in 1688. Now, believe it or believe it not, but the family is actually related to the famous Robert the Bruce. So the Reverend William Bruce was born in Dublin on the 30th of July 1757, and he entered Trinity College, Dublin, in 1771. So Lisburn was his first charge, where he was ordained by the Bangor Presbytery on the 4th of November 1779, and he was a member of the volunteer movement in 1782, serving in the ranks but declining a command. Now, during the 1798 rebellion, he enrolled himself as a private in the Belfast Merchants Infantry on the side of the government forces. His influence with the government in 1800 was on the side of adequate consideration for the Presbyterians in Anglo-Irish Union, and of course he was opposed to Catholic emancipation. Now, the Reverend William Bruce was a Unitarian who claimed that his views were making extensive, though silent, progress through the General Synod of Ulster. This was a challenge, of course, to the orthodoxy of the Presbyterian Church and the doctrine of the Trinity. This would come to a head, of course, in the late 1820s, when the champion of the doctrine of the Trinity, the Reverend Henry Cook, and the champion of the heterodox doctrine of Unitarian, the Reverend Henry Montgomery, would come head to head in a series of debates. Now, when the Reverend Henry Cook was successful in 1829 in pressing the General Synod of the Presbyterian Church to give a firm declaration of their Trinitarian belief, a small group of Arians, and also, of course, the ministers, drew up a remonstrance protesting against the decision of the Synod. And when it was rejected, 17 of the ministers and their congregations withdrew from the Synod of Ulster in 1829 to form the Remonstrant Synod. Now, the Reverend William Bruce joined the Seceders of 1829 in the formation of the Unitarian Society for the Diffusion of Christian Knowledge on the 9th of April 1831. And the Reverend William Bruce had to retire from the ministry in 1834, suffering from a loss of sight which ended in total blindness. And this is the church here. So this is First Lisburn Presbyterian Church. Now, I can't take you inside, but I can take you in the grounds. So the Reverend William Bruce then, he had to retire from the ministry in 1834, as I say, suffering from a loss of sight which ended in total blindness, and he died on the 27th of February 1841, and he's buried in St George's Cemetery on the Whitworth Road in Dublin. Of course, John Wesley also preached here on Saturday the 11th of June 1785, not in this particular building. I will show you the building he preached in. I've actually covered it in a video, but this is newer, so this wouldn't have been here when Wesley was here. But what is here is a wee order of the ministers. I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well or not, which you can't really. I will try and take it out of the gimbal if I can. Sorry for blocking your view there. We might see it a wee bit better. So it's this board here, if you can see it. But it actually does mention the Reverend McCracken as the first minister. You can't really see it, unfortunately, but not to worry. So this is Market Street here, and there is Market Square, and of course I will be mentioning shortly a bomb blast that went off here which affected this church greatly, and not only the church but the other buildings as well, including the two buildings down the bottom there, which is the CW, Christian Workers Union Hall, and the other building behind the trees there is McCall's clothes shop. So they were destroyed, they were damaged in the bomb blast. So was the church here. So the Reverend William Edmund Breakey of Loch Bricklin was installed here on the 3rd of September 1856. Now obviously these aren't all in order. There's more ministers than this, but it would be too many to mention. So the Reverend Breaky was born about 1815 in Drumscelt, County Monaghan, and he's described as having a heart love for the ministry. He had so much of the scriptures committed to memory that it is said that frequently at his Wednesday evening lectures he never opened a book. So he was a pastor in Lochbricklin Presbyterian for 22 years, and he married a girl called Jane Crothers on the 25th of November 1848 of Bombridge. She was a young girl of a good family and a very large fortune, or in other words, he married into the money. So you can see the gate there, First LISBURN Presbyterian Church. So this is the building here that Wesley preached in, John Wesley. And of course then this was added to this building, but this is where Wesley preached. So, as I say, he was married then in 1848, and they had 2 children, him and his wife. Now, sometime after his wife died, he got a call to First LISBURN here, Presbyterian, which he accepted. And the Reverend Breaky then died on the 6th of April 1872, and he's buried with his wife in Lochbricklin Presbyterian Church graveyard, and I covered a video there of him, so you can check that out. So you can. You'll get it under the Reverend William Breaky and Lochbricklin Presbyterian Church in my playlist. But I want to talk to you now about another gentleman who was the minister here, and that was the Reverend William Boyd. The Reverend William Boyd was the minister of 3rd Armagh Presbyterian. He also served as chaplain during World War II, 1939 to 1945, and he was installed here at First LISBURN on the 27th of April 1950. He was awarded a Doctor of Divinity by the Presbyterian Theological Faculty in Ireland, and Dr. Boyd became a moderator of the General Assembly in 1967, and he retired on the 31st of December 1972. And that's the shop there that I was talking about that was badly damaged, McCall's, during the Troubles when a bomb went off here in Lisburn. But the church also suffered badly during the Northern Irish Troubles, because on Wednesday the 5th of August 1981 a car bomb exploded here in Market Street, just around the corner from the church, and the explosion devastated not only the church but also the entire town centre. So the total cost of the restoration of the church and windows was almost £100,000 to replace. Now the church required further restoration after another bomb attack in Lisburn in 1989, and they installed what's known as the resurrection window, which was installed and then dedicated on the 3rd of May 1987 as a memorial of the bomb blast of the 5th of August 1981. And it was actually constructed of fragments from the old church windows that were actually no good after the bomb blast. So a bit of history here, folks. And that's the Christian Workers Union Hall I was talking about. And that plaque there commemorates the Reverend John Wesley, who actually preached in there. So it was this street here was devastated. Market Street by the bomb blast in the 19, getting my centuries mixed up there, the 1980s. And of course, it all had to be rebuilt. I can remember back in the day when Lisburn was known as a ring of steel, and what they done was they put steel gates up in all the different entrances into Lisburn except for one, so you could only actually drive in one entrance and out one entrance. And of course they were dangerous days. I can remember playing snooker in Hillsborough Coach Club one evening, and all you heard was this massive bomb going off, and it was actually the Mara police station that was being blown up. They had left a bomb outside it. But thankfully, hopefully those days are over and will never come back. And of course Lisburn is a prospering town today. So there we are back at the church. And Lisburn's not too busy today, even though it is a Saturday. Probably because the weather is keeping people in. On a good sunny day, this would be packed. So there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and God bless.